gathers at the senior banquet. They're presented with letters that they wrote to themselves in the fourth grade. I wrote something 10 years ago, too, something that I recently found and reread for the first time. Reading what I wrote a decade earlier generated a mix of emotion that I imagine mirrored what my sons felt in their own way as they read their letters. One hoped he would still be playing basketball. He is. He's actually playing at the university level, working towards a degree in physical education. Another one hoped he hadn't let himself go, got chubby and out of shape. He is now a junior in college studying exercise physiology and fit and thriving. Their words made them laugh. They were lighthearted memories of childhood goals and innocent dreams. Their words made them laugh. Lighthearted memories of childhood goals and innocent dreams. My writing brought something else entirely. It generated wonder and pain, amazement and validation, sadness, relief, pity, grief, because what I wrote 10 years ago came out of a place that I barely survived. So, this is a story, about one that I began writing during a 4-month period of profound depression, addiction, ongoing sexual trauma, and suicidal ideation that eventually culminated in a suicide attempt. That was followed by a decade of silence, of stuffing it down, suffering, lying to myself and everyone around me, and of slowly losing pieces of myself. I'm now in active recovery from that period, yes, but also from all that came before it and everything that has come after. The last wave of depression was deep and consuming. It came on the heels of more trauma. I didn't attempt this time, but I did need a significant medical leave from work, stepped into intensive mental health treatments, and began the painful but necessary work of rebuilding myself from the inside out. And Hawaii was the center of it all. When I went to Hawaii, it wasn't on vacation. It wasn't an escape in the traditional sense. I moved there with the intention that my entire family would follow. It was meant to be a new beginning, a last-ditch effort to save a marriage that was already quietly crumbling. I believed that the distance, the beauty, the shift in pace would somehow realign what felt so fractured. But what happened in Hawaii broke the illusion, and me wide open. I went there seeking connection and ended up in a deeper state of loneliness than I had ever known. Eventually, I came back. I'll leave a little bit out there, and I came back, and ultimately, what happened is I stuffed a trauma because I'm a therapist. I'm a trauma therapist, right? I was a trauma therapist when the trauma happened. And so being vulnerable to fall into a situation like that, knowing what I know, I was so embarrassed. And so I didn't tell anybody. And I thought, I tell my clients, like, you cannot deny that something happened. It will come out. And for some reason, I thought I was going to be different, right? And it came out, and I had forgotten that I wrote all of this stuff while I was in Hawaii going through this. And what I had been writing there was essentially I was writing a different story. So a huge example of that is the initial rape. The first time that I was sexually assaulted and I wasn't drugged and I was aware it was happening. When I wrote about that, I called it making love. And I wrote about it like it was my first time making love, about how beautiful it was and how wonderful I felt. Because I had to. Because if that wasn't the story, I couldn't live. And so I had forgotten all about these writings. This is the craziest, wackiest thing until I had this like total other mental breakdown 10 years later, and that which is now 2 years ago. And I stumbled across these writings. And so my therapist and I had the opportunity to go back and unpack it. Like I had to. It had to come out. So I was on a 6-month leave of absence from work. I was doing 3 times a week, very intensive trauma therapy. I did 3 weeks of the adult partial hospitalization program. I ended up being in that program with a former client of mine, right? Yeah, yeah. It was what I feared. It was
Hmm.
what I feared. It was going to come out, right? I tell everybody it's going to come out. It came out. So essentially, on this is actually happening, I was really, really focused on Hawaii. A little bit about the stuff that happened before that made me vulnerable to that I realize now. But there wasn't really a lot of work afterwards. And so I think what this is actually happening did is it gave me the opportunity to then really continue that work on a deeper level. So it's a story that initially
Hmm.
started with this chunk in the middle that kind of, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting little ditty.
Yeah. So, so that time in Hawaii, it was only a 4 month time
Um,
span.
it was actually from September to May, but I was only alone with this person for 4 months.
I see. Okay. Do you want to kind of?
Yeah, like, do you like it when people call it vague booking on Facebook? They like drop a little bit. I'm totally vague booking right now. Like, what the hell happened to you, lady? Right? So, okay, so I was in a really rough marriage. I had been married for must have been about 10 years. No, it was longer than that. I don't even remember at this point. I was married. I had four kids. I was a therapist. We had had a number of things happen. I had some childhood trauma, and then our house burned down, and just all of this stuff. And my ex-husband, who I just want to preface this with, I would consider him today a really, really good friend of mine. Married to him? No, 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 no. His fiance now, like really, I literally was like, "Here's the baton. You take it to the end, dude, because my part of the relay is over." Love her to death. Love her to death. God bless her soul, man. But we were toxic. He's got trauma. I had trauma. We didn't know how to work in a relationship. Like it's the one thing that is probably, parenting and relationships. The things that we don't have instructions on how to do. And every experience that we have in our lives affects the way that we interact with people, right? So you put two traumatized people together and then be like, oh, make it work, right? Until death do you part. Put up with it, man. Like, yeah,
And here's four kids.
yeah, right, right. Because one more is going to help after the fire, right? That'll bring us all together. And I honestly think that it was this something needs to change, something needs to change. And I think it's a lot like you hear a lot about in recovery, like doing the geographical, right? Why not?
Hmm.
I don't like winter makes me sad. I don't have enough vitamin D. Let's go to Hawaii, right, where it's always sunny, and then we're always going to feel better, right, because it's a beautiful magical place. Now granted, I had never been there, right? I had no idea what it was like. I had no idea what it meant to be 5,000 miles away, so I got a job there, right. um
Just so you went with the family
Well,
or with?
initially I went because we had a house here. So I went and I took my oldest son. And so my job was to go over there and find a place for us to live while he stayed back and sold the house and came with the other kids. So, and immediately they talk about this like island fever. I don't know, whatever they call it, but it's this very isolating thing. Like when I got there, I realized how far away I was. I couldn't just get in the car and go see somebody. Like in order for me to see anybody that I loved, it meant getting a plane ticket, which is expensive, and going to the airport and getting on a plane. Like it wasn't just get in the car and go. And my son too was struggling. I mean, he was 14, 15 at the time, tore away from his friends. And again, I was a therapist, right? I was a relatively new therapist, but I didn't think about any of these things. I had this idealized idea of what it was going to be like. I have a big imagination. So I was super lonely. And in the meantime, I had met and they're adult men, whether they're your uncles or not. It's all uncles. Everybody's uncles and aunties, and it's just kind of a cultural thing. And I had met this older gentleman who kind of befriended me, and he was very into the music scene, and I'm a singer, and he had a daughter my age, right? So this literally like a father figure, right? And I talk a lot about how when we're craving connection, we're starving, right? We're wired to be in companionship, in connection with other people, right? Without connection, we die. Literally, we die.
Gabor Mate says connection is the opposite of addiction.
Yeah. I mean, it's the opposite. I mean, it is the ultimate thing that we crave in ourselves, right? And so when I'm isolated and when I'm craving that, you can throw me a breadcrumb, and I am going to think you threw me like this the most wonderful, beautiful dinner. And I think that people pick up on that, right? And I think if you're an empath, and I think if you are a little bit not neurotypical, and I think if you tend to trauma dump as soon as somebody gives you the opportunity to talk and you give them all your secrets, I think that it's a setup. It's a setup to be taken advantage of. Something that I've learned. right? At the time, I just didn't have this. I didn't have this knowledge, right? And that's what happens. That's what makes us vulnerable to these things happening. And so it was a number of months. And in the meantime, my two next sons, I had four boys. The next two came with my nanny. So now three of my kids and my nanny are all there, right? And he's uncle, everybody's uncle. Like he's getting bikes for the kids, and my nanny loves him. Like he's great. He's showing us the island, and we're going to family like big Thanksgiving celebrations with his family. And I was part of something. My kids were part of something, and I wasn't alone, and it was fulfilling a need. And I really want to preface this with, at this point, at no point was there any kind of a romantic, like, oh hey, I'm going to leave my husband for this dude. No, no, like, father, crave it, right? Let's go back to my childhood. Other reasons I crave a father figure, right? So um I we were out one evening listening to music, and I ordered a drink, and the nanny was at home with my kids. And the next thing I knew, it was morning. And I was at his house, this man's house, and again, fully clothed, sleeping on the couch, on blanket covered me up, right? He was in his bed sleeping. And so nothing felt weird other than this big gap in my memory. Like wow, that must have been a strong Long Island iced tea, or I don't know. And he just said, yeah, you just got super drunk, figured it was easier to just bring you here, right? It didn't sit right, because there had been little things along the way that he had said. And I think one of these big things was, when he told me that, he knew how to pull me in. He knew how to get me emotionally, like he knew that I was going to be concerned if he told me he had cancer, which, right, I have cancer, right? And then this long conversation about how he's never going to be able to be intimate with a woman again. And again, I think he was judging my reaction. And like, I'm a fawner. Like, oh shit, I don't know what to say, because again, the red flags are going off. Something doesn't feel quite right. This doesn't feel appropriate for a father figure to say. But at the same time, it's my only connection. I don't want to lose it. I don't want to sabotage it, right? So just fawn. In my head, I'm thinking, what the kind of question are you asking me? Like, seriously, dude? Like, but and so there were those little things, right? And so again, the signs were there. I felt it. And then the memories started to come back. And I just had a memory of, like, laying on the bed and him pulling my pants off, and it just was coming in bits. And so again, I mean, I clarified with him, like, okay, is there something that I don't know? And amazing actor he was like, oh no, like, he was so worried, like he was so worried that I remembered, because he basically painted this picture that he was so grateful that I had forgotten, because he didn't want me to remember, because he didn't want to ruin my marriage. But I had told
Mm.
him in this drunken state how much I loved him, and how I didn't see him as a father figure. I saw him more as a romantic interest, and that I had begged him to make love to me.
So you don't remember that. He just told you that's what happened. Gotcha.
Right. Okay. So now, right, I'm frozen. And I think this is the point where I wish that I would have been. I hate to do that because I don't like regret. Had I known more then, that would have been the moment where I said, get me the fuck out of here. Right? Because I was so isolated, and I still, like, I'm not in a great marriage in the first place. And my nanny did not like my husband at the time. And so she was constantly feeding me, like, and that this is no fault of hers, because the stuff she fed me was pretty true, right? About all of these reasons that I shouldn't be married anymore. And when I brought this up to her, she's like, well, it would be better than what you have now. So I was getting all these messages that were so, like, somebody should be more upset about this, right? It should be me, right? But somebody else should realize what's wrong, and tell me, because I guess I can't always trust my own, like, sense of what's happening. Going back to, I
Right.
don't want to lose this connection because I'm 5,000 miles away.
That's Classic grooming.
Yeah, a shit connection is better than no connection, right? And so
Yeah,
that's when it
yeah.
started to twist in my head, where, okay, I will just create the narrative, right? Well, another step in that is that and I want to say that there's use sprinkled in here. There's painkiller addiction, there's benzodiazepine use, and that was primarily what I was using. Once upon a time, legitimately prescribed. At that time, very much being abused. And I called my husband and I told him what happened. And I mean, essentially, he said he didn't believe me, but I was drugged and raped.
Did he think you just slept with the guy, or did he just think none of it happened?
He thought I just slept with the guy. Right. So now I have this guy telling me, I don't remember anything, but this guy telling me that I told him this is what I wanted. Now I know that's not true, right? I know that's not true. And then I have somebody 5,000 miles away saying he doesn't believe me, which is, again, betrayal trauma, right? You're the person that's supposed to have my back every single fucking time, right? And then I have my nanny saying, well, if you had to choose, right? I don't want to choose fawn, right? Which ultimately kind of morphed into friend, right? So the use increased. There's a lot of gaps in time, but ultimately my now ex-husband came and took the kids back to the mainland and left me there. I don't remember them leaving. I was there. I don't remember. He says that I said some pretty awful, hurtful things. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. I have forgiven that part of me that needed to be checked out. She was doing what she needed to do to survive at the time. Along with, right, so then so then things would happen and I would write and I would write and I would rewrite the story. I would rewrite the story the way I needed it to be told. And I learned to, even though there was, you know, repeated sexual assault, I tried to see it as something that I was consensual about. Nobody back in the States, it's so weird because I don't even know what people thought. I truly don't. There were rumors that I was like, I had an affair with a drug dealer, that I was on meth, that like I'd left my husband for sure. I mean, that was the big thing, but totally by choice. And he was just getting, I mean, he was getting that like, oh, you poor thing. Like, what a horrible woman that you were married to. And so I called my kids every day and I don't know how we just kind of skated through this. Like, nobody really talked about what was really happening. I certainly didn't. I told everybody I was fine. I was happy. I was taking care of this guy who had cancer. That was pretty much what I led it up to. He was incredibly possessive, wouldn't let me go anywhere by myself. At one point, my sister actually came to the island on vacation, and I went and saw her and visited with her. Like, I was so happy to be there, and woo, it's so cool you're here. Isn't it a great island? And he was sitting in a truck watching me the whole time.
Hmm.
At one point, he went to go visit his mom for some reason, and she lived on another island, and he left. And that was when I found a shoebox in his closet that was full of pictures of women laying naked on his bed, obviously drugged, and I was in a picture. Um, so there're just all these little pieces, and again, all I could see was that I had found myself in this situation where I cannot ever tell anybody what's happening, ever, ever, because I'm so ashamed and embarrassed and I should have known better. And here she goes again. Dana always makes mistakes. She always screws up, right? And now I'm a therapist, dude. I should know better. I went to school for this. I have a license to do this. And I'm still, so I went through the motions and I tried to enjoy things. I got to go wild boar hunting. I got to go sailing, and I got to go sailing with the whales, and I got to see the whales come. And I have so much gratitude for that part of me that always looks for the good things. Because sometimes, that's gotten me in trouble. It gets me in trouble a lot with people. I tend to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, or at least historically, that's been my pattern. But when I was there, and it was so dark, that part of me, and I think she's a little girl that learned to just see the good, see the beautiful things, see all the little veins in the leaf, and see the way the tree roots are connected, and see the way The sun shines through the clouds at sunset and ripples on the water, and every little beautiful piece of thing that I think we miss, if that makes sense, because she worked so hard to keep showing me the good so that I didn't leave. But despite that, woo, I haven't been there for a while. Wow. Damn.
So so are you able to almost like decompartmentalize those parts of
Yes.
you? Like it's almost like
Yes.
I don't want to say it's like DID, but it's almost
You know,
like that.
gosh, internal family systems is like the most amazing therapy. Yeah, it is
Mm.
essentially, well, if you think about it, like, right, coming on, right, talking to you, part of me so excited. There's a part of me that loves attention, really. Like, I don't like crowds unless
I don't know that
right,
feeling.
all right, like I don't like crowds unless I have a microphone in the front of them, right? But there is also a part of me that doesn't want to look like an ass, right? So she was so nervous. There was also a part of me that like knew that I needed to put those parts aside and I needed to make sure that like everything was working. That like and then there's a vain part of me that's like, did you check your makeup? Right? So there's all of these because
Right.
we're always parallel processing. We never have just one thing going on. It's kind of like that, and I think that's what's so confusing for people is that so many of the feelings that we have clash, right? How can I
Absolutely.
look at somebody, right, with so much love, and 5 minutes later, look at them through a lens where I'm like, how can like if you crash in a car, like I'm not really going to feel that bad. Like how can we feel those two ways about two different people? Well, it's two different parts, right? It's that and so, going back to, that whole where that all starts is, we come into the world without any expectation other than I'm going to be taken care of, right? We learn that that
Mm.
connection is vital. I am not laying in the bassinet thinking, oh my gosh, does the doctor think it's weird that I have this much hair? Or, God, both of my legs don't kick at the same time. Oh my God, is the nurse looking at? We don't care, right? We know and we learn. I cry, my belly hurts, like mom sticks a boob in my face and my needs are met, right? So we learn like connection. In order for me to survive, I learn, right? There's my connection. What happens is when those connections are severed or damaged, we learn that we may need to act a different way in order to make this connection work, right? And so take the example of parents get divorced. Dad doesn't like a lot of noise. Dad likes it to be quiet. So I know that when I go to dad's, right, even though I have ADHD and I want to hum and sing all day long, right, I know that she can't be there unless, if she wants dad to be calm, right? So there a part of me develops that can be really, really calm. And she dumbs herself down a little bit and she's very submissive, right? She develops very early.
Mm.
Now, whoop, flip to mom's house. Dude, mom loves to laugh, right? So I go to mom's house and I get to be her. I get to be like, to run around and like when we fart, it's funny at mom's house, right? So then I have this other part. And then as I go through life, when I encounter people that trigger feelings like dad, you're going to get this. And so, we learn that if I want to maintain this connection, right? Because now we're worried. Now we have this anxious attachment style starting. So we start to get nervous. And so we develop these managers. And so a lot of my managers are the ones that I'm going to keep the house clean. I'm going to cook exactly what you want. I am going to be so perfect that you're never going to be able to live without me. Right. We develop those. We also develop these ones that like go on high alert, these protectors or these firefighters, right? That when there's a problem, they jump in, they're going to fix it. So I say something, somebody reacts in a way where I think I'm about to get in trouble, right? For whatever reason that's triggered in me, boom, here comes my firefighter. I have a fuck you firefighter that'll sabotage a relationship so fast it'll make your head spin.
Mm.
Because then that little girl, that little exile that we're all working to protect, she doesn't ever have to feel that pain. Because if we keep her disconnected, she doesn't ever have to feel that pain. If that makes sense.
Mm.
And so
Yeah, I think so. I if I'm gonna try, if what's the word I'm looking for? Compare it to my own life, what I think you're saying is
Mhm.
like I'm getting close to 9 years sober in recovery as well. And I remember going through treatment and counselor saying, you got to learn to feel your feelings. You got to feel your feelings. And I was like, I know how to feel. Like, what the hell are you talking about? But I think those parts of me, those different family connections that you're
Yeah.
saying with internal systems, I think I was so isolated to just one feeling at that point that I didn't, I really didn't know
Well,
how to
and I don't
feel contentment.
know.
I didn't like contentment was the hard one
Well,
for
and I
me.
think that how can you feel content when you have so many different things going on in your head? And I think that's the whole thing. When we say, hey, how do you feel? We expect one answer. I feel happy. I feel sad, right? No, 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 no. It's like that. Like when somebody, like, think about this, when somebody dies, right? And you're grieving, right? And then somebody tells a joke. Now I'm grieving and I'm sad and they're telling a joke. If I laugh, it means I'm not sad, right? If I'm grieving, I can't laugh, right? You can feel both of those things in the same space. And I don't think that we are ever taught that. That would clear up so much, don't you think?
Absolutely. This is something I've said just, I don't know how many times in the last few years. And when people do ask me, like, hey, how's it going lately? It's like, well,
You want the long
it's
version or the
complex.
short
Like,
version?
it's like this part of my life's going great. This part of my life's going terrible. This part of my life is just
Yeah,
okay. I'm feeling gratitude and resentment at the same
yeah.
time. Like,
And they
what?
clash. And that
Yeah.
does, and
Yeah.
so how can you be content when they're doing this? You can be content when you learn that, right? Okay, so then we get to this whole idea of, and this whole concept is the true self. And the true self is basically like who I really am at my core. Take these protectors out, right? Who am I? And it is almost like I call all of those parts of me the kids in the daycare, right? I run the daycare. Those are the kids in the daycare. The kids in the daycare used to be in charge. Like there's literally what my therapist and I would draw out all of these parts. And when I first drew it, I was literally looking in a window at these parts and I had no control over them. They were causing ruckus. It's like so, or it's like I'm sitting at the head of the boardroom table and all those parts are there and we have to learn to work together, right? Because all of them were there to help me. There's none of them are bad. Not a single one is bad. They all had my best interests at heart. And so I have to be able to look at each part of me with, and it's the C's, right? With calmness, with curiosity, looking at the part of me. I hate slut shaming. I hate slut shaming because do you know how common it is for women, girls who are seeking connection to physically seek that connection through sex, right? Right. And so I
Yeah.
have to be able to look not with disgust at that part of me, but with curiosity and compassion, right? Like that part of me that thought that if I could just have somebody sexually attracted to me, right? If I could physically have them in my, like, that they would love me, like that part of me truly believed that, right? But I have to be able to have
Hmm.
compassion for her. And so it's, being calm and being clear and being confident. Like I'm confident now that I can run the daycare, right? Now every once in a while, I'll be like, stay home. I don't need you here. And so it's just about all of that just kind of coming to terms with. And each one of those parts of us has a story to tell and needs attention, right? So if the part of me today that was worried about how I looked, like the part that wants me to look good, so that the vain part, um, because she wants people to like me, she wants me to look pretty. If I would say, that's not important, right? I would worry right now about how I look. But because I took the time, right, to listen to her and to say, okay, let's turn on the camera and let's just check how we look, right? She was able to be quiet. And so that part of me that maybe would have caused anxiety, I don't have to deal with, right? So,
Well, with ADHD, because I was just diagnosed a couple of years ago,
yeah, I know mine's pretty
there's a
fresh.
lot of, it's like, it's all or nothing kind of thinking quite often for me. So it is like, okay, the vain part just takes
Hmm.
over, or the whatever part just takes over. So how do you balance? I guess like you have to make a conscious effort
Yeah,
to
yeah,
feel your feelings,
yeah.
whereas other
To get
people
to
maybe
get
don't
to know
have
you,
to.
yeah, to get to know you. Well, no, I think when we all have parts, and I think that the more difficult experiences we've had, the more disrupted connections we've had, the more parts that we develop, right? I mean, you can't get to be like how great is it to be, I'm 51 years old, right? Single, and had a number of failed relationships. You don't get here without baggage, right? So I feel sorry for
Yeah.
I feel sorry for the next poor dude that comes along that has to deal with all of it now plus one more. No, but really, like, I probably have more of those things to work with than somebody that's just like, they met in high school and they've been together and they've had a relatively calm life. That just hasn't been my experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
So
okay.
anyway, I mean,
So anyway, you were
I
crying
was
about the
thank
sunsets.
you for getting me off that damn cry fest. No, no, again, I think that it is a perfect example of the importance of honoring all those parts, right? Because there was a part of me in an effort to save my life forced me to see the good. And again, that part of me just worked really, really hard, and I'm so grateful. It's one of my favorite parts of me. So it is a little bit like, and it's been compared to that. It is a little bit like DID with a conscious knowledge of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I mean, some of my darkest times when I was going through mental health and addiction issues were also some of my funnest fucking nights I've ever had in my life.
right? Right? But
But
but but
anyway,
but but I think that's what's important is that, like, there is a part of you that enjoyed part of that, although there was a part of you that probably really struggled with it, right? And so sometimes you feel forced to be like, not, don't put any positive on that, but then you're ignoring this part of you that needs attention because that part of you helped you get through that somehow. And all of those parts deserve all of the, like, thank you so much. I thank my red flag part, the part that sees red flags. I thank it all the time. Like, thank you for pointing that out, because the part that sees the good in everybody was like, well, you can put up with that, right? And that part's like, remember what happened last time. And so it's just like that. It's that classic angel and demon, right?
right.
Yeah. So at some point, and I couldn't even tell you what happened. I The part that sees the good, she must have checked out for a little while. And my suicide attempt was so chill. It was that, and I didn't remember parts of it until I had found those writings 10 years later. I remembered the seizure, but I didn't remember the events leading up to the seizure because it was just called a seizure. It wasn't called a suicide attempt. I was this man invited his family over, and I was making this big dinner for all of them, and I was the hostess, and that was my job. And I got everything ready, and I got everybody sat down at the table, and I got everybody served. And I went in the bathroom and I grabbed a big bottle of tramadol and I poured, I don't know, a heap. And I slowly took them all. I calm as a cucumber, took them all, kind of like, okay. Went outside, called my kids, told my kids how much I loved them. It wasn't like I was saying goodbye. I was just like, call my kids. Sat down, smoked a couple cigarettes, went in, checked to make sure everybody was okay. Went back outside, smoked a couple cigarettes. I feel like I got a little bit nauseous, maybe. And then next thing I know, there's paramedics and I'm on the floor and there's blood in my mouth because I had bit my tongue and I had peed my pants. So I had a seizure. And we got to the hospital, and they're like, did you take something? No, of course, because, that's not, you can't find tramadol in a test. So, and I knew that, right? I knew what to take that wouldn't necessarily be traced without a specific test. So I let it be. Nobody ever knew. Nobody ever knew that that's what it was. And that, again, that was going to my grave. So
Was it planned or was it kind of a
it was
spontaneous
very
thing?
spontaneous. But that's why I'm saying it was so spontaneously calm, right?
Right.
Right? It was the same It
Yeah.
wasn't like I was saving them up. It was the same, there were bottles all over the place. I knew where they all were. It was never, I always prided myself on never being suicidal, right? Because if you grow up with a little bit of religious trauma, suicide's a sin, and heaven knows that I don't want to be a sinner. Yeah, interesting the way those things stick, isn't it? Um,
Hmm.
and so again, there's a ton of shame. Clearly, I lived, right? Here I am. Um, and ultimately, uh, what happened was that I had a little bit of a wake up call, and I played along until I convinced him that there was some kind of a law that if I didn't, like, something to do with my kids, and there would be like a legal abandonment, which I think there actually is literally something like that, but that I had to go back and get at least one of them to come back with me, because he's like, "Oh, we'll raise your kids together." I had to go back and at least get one of them to come back, and so he let me go back to get one of my kids. And when I left, however, at the end, he knew I was leaving. I could tell that he knew that I was leaving. And again, it was such an anticlimactic end to this whole you can't go, you can't go, you can't go, you can't go. And then I'm going, and then okay. It was just like, and again, so then all of these things that just didn't match up. This is the kind of story that nobody's going to believe. There's not, right? This is like a Lifetime movie, right? Nobody's going to believe it. So we're just going to tuck that away, and we're going to go home. And when anybody asks, we're going to say, we don't talk about Hawaii. And that's what I did.
Right. Or if they do believe you, or if they do believe you, they're like, well, why didn't you just leave
Yeah.
earlier? You know, all these
Yeah.
kind of
Right.
like victim blaming or
And
whatever.
and honestly, the that didn't even seem like an option. I look at it now, right, through a different lens, and I look at it now and I'm like I could have. Like that was a choice, but that was out there. It was an option in
Theory.
theory, but shame's shame is ugh, I don't want this. Um yeah, and so
I thrive in shame.
in the dark.
It's a good motivator.
Is it though? I mean, I prefer anxiety. I prefer
No,
anxiety
I
as a
mean,
motivator. I mean, if we're gonna pick one, I pick anxiety.
right.
Although I've been
Yeah,
learning
no.
about anger as a motivator, and let me tell you what,
Mm-hmm.
learning to utilize anger appropriately as a woman, um, and as a woman who has been taught to be compliant and obedient and quiet, has been a trip.
Even as a man, using anger as a motivator, appropriate
Maybe,
motivator.
oh,
Not
perhaps it is harder for you. I don't know, right? Oh, there's different ways to look at that, isn't
well, I
there?
mean, in my family, like anger is talk about a shield or talk about, you know,
Protector.
what was the meme I saw? Anger is anxiety's bodyguard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And
Yeah, and
anxiety
like,
is bodyguarding that exile inside of us. They're all protecting that wounded child that doesn't want to ever be hurt again.
yeah, yeah, and I mean there's a lot of anger and addiction issues throughout my
Yeah.
family, cousins, uncles, everybody, right? So it's also a learned behavior, that anger, and then
Right,
yeah,
right. Well, and I think it's
but
interesting too, the difference between people who express their anger outwardly and people who express it inwardly. You know,
mm,
that strong inner critic. I think that's where most of my anger has always been harnessed in what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? What can I do better? What can I do better? What can I do better? And so every time I say, what can I do better? I feel like another one of those parts develops that tries really hard to fix something. You know, it's a lot like, you'll see adults, think of two adults who will scream at each other like a parent and a child, adult, like, you're not my kid anymore. Like, I don't want to see your face. Get the F out of here. And the other one's like, yeah, well, you're the shittiest dad in the world. Like, and they're having this like brawl, right? And it's hurtful words. And so what you see are these two adult men angry. And you know what's really happening? There's two hurt little boys that are saying, you're not my friend anymore. Yeah, well, you can't come to my birthday party. Right. And I,
I'm taking my ball and going
yeah.
home.
But you know what happens with kids? They don't choose righteousness. They wait just a little bit and then they're right back in the sandbox and they're able to let things go. And I think as adults, we are much often more concerned about righteousness sometimes, or sometimes just the way it makes us look, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, whole other rabbit hole. I'm good at rabbit holing. Yeah. So
me too.
so yeah, so then I yes, so that in essence is kind of the story of Hawaii. And I think what sharing that story initially did, is it opened me up to a whole lot of, it wasn't a whole lot, most of it was positive feedback, but I did take the negative feedback And I utilized it, right? People were saying, wow, you just say to your kids, like, we don't talk about Hawaii, right? And I think at that point I had been so focused on my own healing that I hadn't thought about what, and now my kids are adults for them, well, three of them. And I wonder what they think was going on. And so I realized that I needed to address that. I realized how important it is if I look back on my own childhood when there are things that didn't make sense, like the fact that I think this is perfect when we talk about love languages. The only way that my dad knew how to show love was to go to work his ass off and make sure that we had a place to live, food to eat. We got to go on vacation every other summer. I always had clothes. He worked, right? That was his love language. Unfortunately for me, I didn't know that, right? I just saw my dad's never around. My dad must not love me. So that right, the way that I saw that then, looking back now, I see, yeah, he did, right? So essentially I look back, and until I understood that, right, that my dad was doing the best he could with what he had and it made sense to me, that was going to be a hole. And again, it's like a part of me that developed that felt like I was not lovable to my dad, that needed to know, no, your dad showed you how to love you the best way that he did. And you know what? You deserved the love, right? You deserve to be loved in the way that you needed to be loved, right? But here's what happened. And so that part got to have a voice and say, I needed something different, right? I was looking for something different. And then an explanation as to why I didn't get that. And then I can learn to provide that to myself, right? I can nurture myself. And I can go back to that little girl and I can imagine her sitting there waiting for her dad to come and waiting for her dad to read her a book. And I can hug her and I can tell her, you know what? If he would have known how to do that, I know that he would have given you that. And I can just sit with her and have compassion and let her know that she's okay. And and so it's kind of like you take it back to that, every one of those parts, understanding it. And I wanted to be able to provide my kids with, I wanted to fill in that hole. I wanted to give that part an accurate understanding, maybe, and the opportunity to verbalize what it thought was going on and ask any questions that it had. And that came out of people saying, "Eh, you're a bad mom."
Yeah, right. Did you sit with a counselor or some? Was there a
I
referee or
haven't
was it
yet.
just you and your
No, no,
kids?
no, 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 no. My
Yeah.
therapist
Okay.
has guided every piece of this. I mean, from the writing the book, every podcast that I've been on. You're number three. I act like I've had this big long history of being on podcasts, but seriously, I mean, we talk about each one. We talk about how would you deal with this, how would you deal with that. And so with my son that I started with, of course, I picked the one that's going to school to be a therapist. And I shared the episode with him because again, my kids didn't even know I recorded that. Um, they had no idea. And that's in a big
They did know the story at
no,
that point, the full
no,
story.
no,
Interesting.
no. I know, isn't it? Right. And it took, I feel like duh, like no kidding, you should have addressed that. But again, I was so wrapped up and trapped in my own trauma and then working on unpacking that. And I feel like this is what happens, right? That the teacher comes when the learner's ready, right? And the student, I was ready. And so all that feedback came right at the right time where I'm like, you know what? I feel pretty satisfied with where I'm at. So now I'm going to open this up to my kids. And so I had him listen to it. And then the very next day, we had a joint session with my therapist and she guided it. And then she offered him an additional private session if there were things he wanted to talk about that he didn't want me there for, that felt safer without me there. And it was it was great. I mean, it was hard because again, my perception of the pieces of his childhood that were probably the worst weren't. I was wrong. And again, we
Hmm.
look back at our own childhood, and I'm sure my mom's perception is very different than mine.
Yeah, I wonder what my parents think was the worst part of my life.
Right? What
Like that involved them, I
right?
guess.
What was the most traumatic thing you went through? I bet it would be a little bit different than what you think.
Yeah,
Because again,
probably.
it's a different.
Yeah, and then now I have a 18. Well, they're going to be 19 and 21 here coming up. It's like, yeah, I'm always like worried about stuff I said and did, but for all I know, it's completely other stuff
Yeah.
that they're going to hold
Yeah.
resentments and
Well,
whatever.
and I'll tell, and the funny thing is with that kid, Hawaii was nothing. It was nothing. It was a drop in the bucket. What was worse?
He's like, oh, we had a nice break
Well,
from you.
with the exception of finding out that I tried to kill myself, he was devastated. He
Right.
was devastated. And to hear it from him say, "Why would you ever want to leave us?" But in that moment, I thought they were better off without me.
Right. Of
And
course.
that I think that well, you want to start talking about like when people say that suicide is selfish, like don't get me started. Don't get me started. Yeah, I got the same look.
Son.
Right?
Yeah. I don't know if you know, but I'm a
Yes.
suicide attempt
Yes.
survivor
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And so for him that was really hard, and for me I talk about suicide all the time. I think the more we talk about suicide the less it happens. And so for me that's such a no impact issue that oh yeah, a suicide attempt, right? But then my kid to hear it, like I called my kids and I said I love you and then I went to die, like that wasn't cool with him at all. But really the worst was when his dad and I were fighting. He said that we were so preoccupied with our own dysregulation that he felt responsible to take care of his younger brothers, and he was little. And I at that time too, I felt like I look back at that time and feel like I was also a victim. And to think that he saw us, the parental unit itself, as toxic to them, us together, right? Oh, like that's deep. Isn't that kind of profound? Like, want to talk about parts?
Well, that's basically what generational trauma is you're the victim and the
Mhm.
cause of
Right.
the next people's
Right,
trauma.
right. But I can conceptualize that with people all day long in my office. But
Right.
but then applied knowledge, like, right? What's at least for myself, my number one fear. I'm fuck up my kids, right? Sure
Yeah.
enough, I kind of did a little bit here and there, but I think we ripple their water. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Some ripples are bigger than others, but I think it's the going, it's the fixing. It's the fixing. And
Yeah.
that takes some vulnerability, and that takes the willingness to be authentic and to own mistakes. And then not only that, but then take that applied knowledge and use it to better yourself.
Yeah. And I guess it takes willingness to be able to hear feedback with an open mind, not take it personal.
Well, I mean,
Because I mean, that's
at first, the first negative comment that I read that attacked me as a parent, and as a parent, right? Anything else, but talk about my parenting, like get my name out your mouth, right? And so my initial reaction was there was a mix of I was irate. Like, you don't know me. You don't know nothing about me. You don't know what I've been through. And you don't know what I've done since. Like, this whole, like, okay, yeah, well, fact, right? They don't. Okay, that's a fact, right?
mm-hmm.
Fact. Like,
Mm-hmm.
talk about radical acceptance. Let's do some radical acceptance. There are people that troll just to be mean. Okay, so.
Yeah.
Okay, I can accept that. So don't take it personal. They don't know me. There's people that do this just to be mean. And here's the other part of that is that if something hits you like a dart, right? You might want to look at whether or not there's some truth in that, right? It's that whole like, if I got one finger pointing at you, I got three pointing back at me, right? And so that was what opened up that whole I need to talk to my kids about that hole in their history that I basically said, I'm a therapist, but they'll bring it up and we don't talk about that, right? Exactly what my dad said, like we don't have feelings, like I did
Right.
that. I did that to them. I did that to them for
Right.
years.
But I mean, it takes willingness and willingness to hear feedback and not take it personally when you're working with your kids about stuff that, like, some people don't want to hear this things
It's hard.
that cause, like lots of people would just still not be talking about this
Well, think about it though, right?
or or like work on themselves, but not then go like have the self-awareness to be like, oh shit, I should probably sit down with my
Right.
kids and
Right.
talk about the same stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
you look at basic, I mean, part of attachment theory is if my core relationships, if there's anything in those core relationships that's wonky, my ability to branch out and have successful relationships going out isn't going to work real well. And so
So you'll just repeat patterns
absolutely,
then, you
you
think?
think? I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
so that'll just continue to happen. So, but again, like I said, the ability to look at that immediately with defensiveness, yes, hearing something from your kids and look at where does that come from? If my kid is saying, you did this wrong, right? That attacks the part of me again that is so entirely sensitive, right? Because I may have hurt my child, right? And if I hurt my child, they may not love me anymore. And if my child doesn't love me anymore, I can't even fathom that, right? So I am going to immediately say, oh no, that's not what I did. So that I protect that piece that might have to say, I made a mistake, right? I made a mistake. Will you still love me? That's hard to do. That's
Mm-hmm.
hard to do. And especially to your kids.
Yeah.
Do
Especially
our
to your
kids do
kids.
our
Yeah.
kids realize the impact that they have on us? One of the chapters that I wrote is called, nobody can hurt you like your children. No one.
Hmm. Yeah.
And again,
Stupid kids
I
hurting me.
know, I don't even like them. I don't even like them. No, but you think about like the first time you heard your kid say, I hate you, at least for me. Now, there's a
I've never heard that.
shut your face off. Really, your kids have never said, I hate you. Man, see, now I was told that when you hear that, you know you're doing something right because you made them mad.
You're calling me a bad parent.
No, yeah, you said it, man, not me. Not me. But the times where your kids point out something that
Yeah. Yeah.
anything that your kid's a little big.
They'll criticize me.
Yes. Right? No, absolutely. I just think that's the part that really kind of jabs you and it hurts. And so opening yourself up to those real emotions and trusting that your kids aren't gonna abandon you, because that's what it all goes back to. I don't want to lose that, and I don't want to make them mad, because if I make them mad, they might leave, and they might not feel the way they do, and they are vital to my survival. I think a lot of people parent that way out of this fear that if they don't do certain things, their kids aren't going to like them anymore, right? There it is. See, they might not say that's why they don't hate you. I tell you,
We don't talk about
I
that.
tell you what, I am raising. I have so I'm 51, right? I am raising a 5-year-old. So we did foster care back in the day, and one of our foster daughters, biological daughters, now I am mommy now. So it's kind of fun because I'm mommy and my ex-husband is grandpa. Go figure. I used to be grandma. Yeah. So yeah, from GILF back to MILF. Anyway, so but so no, so we go to kindergarten roundup, right? And we walk in and I'm like, oh yeah, she's starting kindergarten. I'm starting menopause. Gonna be a great year.
She's going out of diapers. I'm going in them.
Right? She just handed the diaper rash cream to me and said, here you go, mommy. Yeah. Yeah. No, she's got a totally different mom, than my boys had, because I've learned that when she cries and she pulls at my heartstrings, right, that I can't cave. And now I've also learned, I raised 4 boys, and now this one's a girl. They're different. Woo, dog, they're different. They're different. Yep, they are very.
Yeah, I got 2 boys, and I have friends with daughters, and they're always so lovely to visit, because I was scared to have a daughter. I'm not gonna lie, because I was like, I don't know anything about him. And now it's like some of my friends' daughters. I'm like, if we were to ever have a daughter, I wish it was like
Yeah.
that.
I will tell you, my little girl, she can sit in a duck blind for 2 hours. The other day, somebody, okay, so I'm a hunter, but somebody had we go fishing. She can grab a night crawler, tear it right in half for me. She can take the fish off the hook. She helps me clean turkeys. Somebody I was field dressing
It's like my
I was
sister.
field dressing a bear just a few weeks ago. And she's like there where and she's wearing this cute little dress and she's like, I want to hold the heart, mommy. So she's standing there with her little flower dress holding this big bloody bear heart with blood up to her. I mean, she's cool shit. She's fun. She's pretty badass actually. This little badass kindergartner. But yeah, she's got a very different version of me. I'm a very different parent because I've learned a lot about we're going to talk about feelings. We're going to be honest. When she says you're mad at me, I'm going to say, yeah, you know what? I am mad at you. And then we're going to learn how to deal with the fact that I'm mad at you. And we're going to learn that it's not that I don't love you, right? Because and we're having those conversations that I didn't even know to have before.
Right. Yeah.
And we say, kids thrive on rules. They thrive on limits. You set limits, you hold them accountable, right? That they will thrive and that they need that. But when you're doing it, it doesn't feel like they know they need it. It doesn't feel like they're acting safe, right? It feels like they hate you. And I don't want them to hate me. So, okay, you can have popsicles for breakfast, right? But I think that's when, yeah, if you want, and donuts. Actually, you know what? I had a little Debbie this morning. I had a Hostess cupcake or something this morning. I have my boys are 15, 22, oh wait, 15, 20, 22, and 27. And then I have a 5-year-old girl. But no, I mean, I remember weekends where every Monday I would check the jail roster to make sure they weren't in jail. I was so scared. And those were, and it wasn't, there was no realistic reason for me to be concerned other than I knew myself and I knew that they have a little bit of me in them. Um, and I knew that some of the experiences that they had been through had had a pretty significant effect on how they released their extra energy. You know, my I have one of my children, I won't specify which one, but one of my children has been in the hospital twice with suicidal ideation. That's the well, that's the shittiest call you could ever get. However, I am so grateful that he knew and that he felt safe enough to call me and say, Mom, I need
Mhm.
help. No, I denied the fact that I was in that world, much less trying to bring somebody into it with me. I floated myself into a whole different reality, right?
Exactly. Well, I think, I mean, as again, there's the two conflicting feelings again. It's like gratitude and just complete and utter concern and fear for your
Right.
child, but
Yeah.
also,
And
yeah,
again, that shows you though that when you have conflicting feelings, which you're going to have because of, the way that we process, I wish that people had a little better understanding of that because it just seems to make things make more sense. I can sit in conflictual feelings with a little bit less anxiety, knowing that it's a little bit more normal than I thought.
yeah, yeah. Have you seen the movie? Was it In and Out? The cartoon with
Yeah.
the
Yeah, yeah. Inside
Inside
Out.
Out. Inside Out.
Totally. Totally.
I've never seen that. Do they have conflicting moments?
Absolutely. They're all up there trying to they're
Okay, good.
no, it's a great representation of just the basic emotions that kind of take over based on a situation. Something is triggered and dude, anger jumps in there and grabs the controls and says, "Oh, hell no, we're not going to be nice," right? And again, I think without the knowledge that we have all these different players involved. And I just think it's interesting when you start to explore those parts. Like I have parts that I know are they're very immature. It's when I start to get really kind of icky and sassy and mean. And it almost like my demeanor changes, my voice changes, the way I talk changes. Depending on which part I lean into, I listen to different music. Like like so there's and it typically correlates in time with what was going on in my life at that time. It's interesting when you start to map it all
Mm,
out, how everything is really connected and how those parts are always trying to communicate with us what is going on and what they're saying, but not everybody has the understanding, unfortunately, at this point, to be able to single them out and say, well, let's look at this one
mm,
and let's see, because this one's been really loud, and if we can give it the attention it needs, it'll quiet down. And I've just been I found incredible success, not only with myself, but with my own clients in practice using that model. So
right.
and again, I think we just naturally, like you said, we naturally just kind of do that, but it just makes it make more sense.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Shit, I forgot to hit record.
Oh, that's all good.
I talked to you for nothing.
Ah, I hate that. So basically, what I said was, no, I'm just kidding.
Connected with you for no reason.
God, now it's over. Now our connection is severed, and now I'm going to develop.
Be sure to subscribe and to like this video. You can listen on Apple Podcast and Spotify. This is Todd Rennebaum saying, make your beds and take your meds. Keep watching for more interviews with incredible people telling their stories of resilience and adversity with mental health and mental illness.